All right, well, it looks like we are live. Welcome everyone to the October meeting of the Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation Commission. We have a relatively short agenda today, and I have no doubt, though, that it will fill the entire 90 minutes of our time that we have set aside. I'm generally going to follow the agenda for today as it's published, but I will save the public hearing regarding Airbnbs until the very end of our discussion. When we do get to the Airbnb matter, I will set forth a different set of ground rules that will help our discussion because we are so short on time. For the earlier applications, I ask that the applicants do respect the time of the commissioners and of the others who are waiting. Ask that you be concise in your presentation. Please remember and please know that we have all had a chance to review your applications, so there really should be no need for a lengthy discussion or much explanation. With that said, let's move on to our agenda. The first item of the agenda is a review and approval of the minutes of our August 31st meeting. Members of the commission, you've all had a chance to review those minutes and had some discussion by way of email. What is your pleasure?
I move approval as amended.
I have a question regarding the minutes. Item 1, I saw in the minutes that 2 people voted yes, 1 person didn't vote, and 1 person voted no. Is that enough to pass that motion?
I believe that those minutes should reflect that Mr. Kerr did not vote. He was not a no vote.
Yes.
So how many aye votes were there?
2 yes votes and 1 no vote, according to the minutes.
Well, normally we need a majority of the quorum of the members in attendance to pass on an item. I don't see where my vote was recorded there. Can we go back and see how many members were in attendance? Myself and Leslie Cooper were not noted in the results of the vote.
Right.
Is Leslie on the line? I don't see her. David, is she there?
I saw her on the list. I'm not sure what happened here. She was in the attendee. She was having some difficulty with the link. I'm not sure where she has gone.
Yeah. Well, speaking for myself, I recall being a yes vote. Let's hold on that issue for now till we have Miss Cooper on the line.
I can go back and listen to the recording again too.
Okay. I'm fairly confident that it passed. I mean, it's difficult to record votes by way of Zoom because you're so separated. But let's move on. And are there any other items to bring up relative to the minutes?
No, that was it.
Okay. Well, let's hold on those until we get Leslie on the line, and we might even have to push these to next month. All right. Let's move on now to the applications for appropriateness. The first request is Mary and Don Lofty at 885 Forest Avenue to replace a railing. Is there someone on the applicant's behalf willing to speak?
There is, and it's not me. I'm going to recuse myself from this matter completely and let my wife, Mary, present it to the commission.
I believe I just promoted her, so she should be showing up here shortly.
Okay, I think I'm here. David, am I there?
I can hear you. Can others?
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the presentation is pretty simple. You have the pictures there, and you have the pictures of our very ugly railing. So does anyone have any questions?
Members of the commission, any questions, any motions?
Can you put up the picture of the new railing?
There it is.
Okay.
It's a pretty simple, it's kind of brown. So it will blend in with the house.
I move approval.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Is there anyone else who wishes to address this application? Members of the commission, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mrs. Lofty. Moving on now to the request of Brian and Rochelle Dixon at 785 Congress, front wood picket fence. Are one of the Dixons available? Mr. Dixon, I believe you're on mute still.
There we are. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Sorry, cut back out and then put me back on.
That's okay.
So yes, the picket fence along the front of 785 Congress, we're looking to put a white picket fence along the front of the house and down the side just a little bit. As we submitted our drawing on our survey, indicated it would be set back just slightly from the property line in accordance with the guidelines of the village, and that's about it.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
And that is, I looked at the property not online. I mean, I'm sorry, I looked at it online, but not in the field. And the photographs that I saw showed an arborvitae fence across the front property line. Is that the correct house?
The arborvitae fence, those were removed, and that's where the picket fence is going to go. So yep, the arborvitae was taken out, and then the picket fence is going to basically go in where they used to be.
Okay, and how high is it going to be?
The fence should be approximately, I think, 4 feet high or so, 4.5 feet high, just coming up to about the waist, about a normal picket fence, I think.
And painted white?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, white picket fences are very appropriate.
Does your house currently have a circle drive?
Yes, it does.
So will that have 2 gates to it, or will that just be open where the drives are?
So that's a good question. We've discussed having a gate, but we haven't fully decided on it right now. We do want to put a gate across the pathway, which is our sidewalk walking up to our house, which is right in the middle of our circle drive. But we did consider doing a gate because we do have a fair amount of turnarounds in the driveway, and we have young kids that'll play out in the front yard, and they'll come in pretty quickly, which has given us a little bit of concern for how quickly people turn around in there.
So is your current submittal to have 2 separate closing vehicle gates on that and a passenger gate centered on the door on the house?
That is, let me check let me see if I can find it in my email here. Bear with me one moment.
As far as the height, can you hear me?
Yes.
As far as the height, aren't we limited to 4 feet on the height on that fence on the front?
Yes.
Okay, then it'll be 4 feet.
What I would suggest is you ask that we approve 3 gates, and then you can make your decision. I think it would be appropriate either way, but if we approve it with 3 and you decide to do, or the alternative of a minimum of 1 for the people, and then you decide on the driveways, and then you're covered, whichever way you want to go. It sounds like you want to put those in for safety.
Yeah, that's correct. So, and that's a good point. So then we'll ask to go ahead and have one man gate for the walkway up to the house, and then 2 auto gates, 1 on each side of the circle drive.
And they would match the fence. They'd be wood.
Correct.
Wood
They would
picket gates.
That's correct. They would be wood, matching the pickets and matching the rest of the fence. That's correct. Also
And-
white.
And you would like an option to not do the driveway gates if you so choose, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Bob, that sort of sounded like a motion. Bob, you're on mute. Can't hear it.
Okay, I tried to be a good boy and put it on mute as soon as I was finished.
No.
So I'd make a motion that we approve as submitted with one people gate and an option to either have 2 driveway gates or not at his discretion. And all materials will be painted wood and no higher than 4 foot.
A second.
All right, motion and second. Anyone else care to address this application? Any further comments, members of the commission? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Dixon. You can work with David on any subsequent permits that might be needed. I think you should be in good shape.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you very much.
All right,
I'll be in
thank you.
touch with you.
Thanks, David.
All right, our next and final application for appropriateness is a request of Christ Church for property located at 46 Erie Avenue for window replacement. David, is there a representative of Christ Church in the queue?
There is, if you give me 1 second, I need, sorry, Drew, could you promote me to a host? I had some technical difficulties and had to rejoin.
Yeah, I can do that.
Once I have that host authority, I can go ahead and promote.
David, what's the name of the representative?
Michael, otherwise known as Mick Cook.
Cook, okay. I see him joining. Mr. Cook, I think you're on now. If you'll have to unmute yourself to give your presentation. Perhaps you've heard my introductory comments where I asked the applicants to be as brief as possible. We've all had an opportunity to review the application, so we've got a real good sense of what you're proposing. So if you would just go ahead and introduce the application and we'll take it from there.
Yes, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, I'm here to propose the ability to replace the casement windows on the addition at the property that Christ Church Glendale has purchased at 46 Erie. And all of the windows that are in that building are currently inoperable. And we are planning to repair all of the double hung windows and replace the storms with like storms, and the materials for those storms are in the packet that I submitted. The casement windows, however, have been described by the firm that we plan to have repair the double hung windows. They can sort of repair the casement windows, but I'm quoting here. It says the sunroom windows on the first and second floor, due to casement operation, are difficult to adequately weather seal for efficiency and still ensure ease of operation. And we've determined that there's really no good practical way of repairing these casement windows, and have elected to replace them. And we've looked at 3 different brands of windows, and we're trying to maintain the appearance that we currently have, plus make sure that it's in compliance with the Planning Commission guidelines. And we seem to be narrowing down into Anderson 400 series or Anderson E series. And the basic information about those casement window, the construction of those windows is in the packet. Basically, the E series is aluminum clad. They're wood windows, but they're aluminum clad. And the 400 series are wood windows, vinyl clad. Those are the 2 major differences. These are casement windows. as opposed to the double hung. So there's hardware involved with for opening and closing of those windows. And we're applying to replace those the existing casement windows with either Anderson E series or Anderson 400 series casement windows.
I have a question if I'm not interrupting.
Yes.
Would they be sized exactly like the windows are now? In other words, would you not have any filler around the sides and top and bottom? Are they going to be exactly sized the same as the windows that are there?
Based on the quotes that we've received so far and the technical specifications, as I understand them, they will be the same size.
Okay.
There might be a fraction of an inch of fill to accommodate the window style and available windows, but they are to be the same size, yes.
Well, I see no problem with either the vinyl or the aluminum clad. I prefer the aluminum clad myself, but I think they'd both be fine. But if somebody makes a motion, I think it ought to specify that the windows be within a half an inch of the existing windows in size.
I think that's a good point. I think I should share that I met on site with Maureen Baysmith, who's a member of the church. And I explained at that time that this I guess it's a porch, a former sleeping porch, probably. I don't believe it was originally enclosed, and the windows that are there now are not historic. And I think it's fine to replace them. And I agree, Bob, with your advice that the new windows should fill the opening at least within a half an inch. And I also would not argue about aluminum or vinyl. Aluminum is better. I agree with that. So, did you make a motion, Bob?
Muted. No, I did not. Do you want to go ahead?
No, you go ahead. I'll second.
Okay, I move that we accept the proposal, either vinyl or aluminum clad, and that the windows have to be within a half inch of the existing opening size.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone else who wishes to address this application?
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
About the half-inch restriction, are you referring specifically to the frame or to the overall glass opening?
Referring not to the glass opening, to the opening itself, to the rough opening or the finished opening.
Oh, the existing frames would stay in place. In other words, these would basically be inserted into the frames as they stand in the house. We will not be removing the existing frames.
I've never seen a casement window that is put inside of another frame. That's interesting.
So then does that mean that the mullions actually will look and appear twice as wide? Or are you just keeping the jamb and putting in a new window?
We're keeping the window frame, and the jamb, I guess I'm describing this correctly, would fit in within the existing frame.
So these are just sashes that you're replacing?
No, it sounds like it's a sash and a structure around the sash, but what it's going to do is it's going to give it a little beefier appearance. Yeah. I don't know by how much, possibly an inch or inch and a quarter all the way around or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's going to really reduce the surface of the glass, the area of the glass. It's not going to look like it looks now.
And the reason for doing that again, is that a cost measure?
Well, without tearing out the whole side of the house, one, for instance, in the sunroom, there's a gang of 4 on the east side of the house, a gang of 3 on the front of the house, which is the south side. And then there's a door with 2 casement windows beside it on the south side, an exit door. And the windows would basically be fitting within the existing frames. Just be taking out the parts that the actual glass panes themselves with the frame around the glass, and replacing that with a new window. It's just a kind of an insert that would have a small frame, and along with the window pane itself.
What the manufacturer and the model again?
Yes, they're both Anderson. One is Series E, which is the aluminum clad window. And the other one is the 400 series, also Anderson, which is a vinyl clad, wood window vinyl clad.
Does that change the motion at all? Bob, Beth?
Well, I don't really know that we have enough in the way of the specs to know how thick this new insert is going to be around there. And it sounds like a lot of windows, and it could really close it up quite a bit. You know, is it going to be an inch, inch and a half, 2 inches around there of additional frame on top of the frame that's already there?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess it does change it. I'm not comfortable with it unless I would see more specs showing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, we generally have, Bob, we have 45 days when we get an application to act. So normally that means we can pass on an item at least one time to the next month's meeting. So if you and Beth, for that matter, feel that you need extra information to support your motion, you can withdraw your motion, and we could entertain a motion to defer this to next one.
I think I'd prefer to withdraw it. I really don't see why they can't take the existing frame out. It doesn't mean tearing the whole structure up. It doesn't mean even tearing the siding up or anything. It's just a matter of cutting that jamb out and putting a new jamb in of the appropriate size.
Mm-hmm.
The framing in the photograph already looks pretty thick.
Yeah, I agree.
It really does look like it has a vertical member between each pair of casement windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, those windows obviously swing from the center of each unit, and apparently.
There you go.
Apparently they were, according to one of the potential installers who we've talked to, said that they looked like they were custom made. Their 2 sets of standards as far as measurements are concerned, with all 16 windows that are in the upper and lower levels. And they've, if you think about just opening them in the center or from the center so that they separate panels swing left and right, in order to get them to seal, we have looked at quite a few different sources for trying to repair them. And it just doesn't make sense to do that. Apparently, you wouldn't be able to make the existing windows operable and still weather seal effectively. So you gotta have, kind of choose one or the other. We've talked about sealing all of them shut, which is basically what they are now, except for a few that they either cannot open or cannot close. The ones that are, that we can't open are painted shut. And the ones that won't close, there are a couple of them that just kind of swing back and forth in the wind, and they don't fit together. There's too much interference with paint, and they just are inoperable. So we need to do something, and there's considerable expense involved. So far, it seems like the most practical approach, based on what we've looked at, is to go ahead and simply replace them with these, with either Series E or Series the 400 series.
Well, they do make new hardware for those windows that could be put on. And if it's paint that's obstructing it, that's very easily remedied by stripping the windows and just having a clean surface for them to join at. But I'm not suggesting that you not replace the windows. I'm saying you can get windows that are appropriately sized so that you don't close the openings. That's why I asked you if they were going to be the same size as existing, because that really alters the look when you start putting a window inside of a window, which is what you're planning on doing.
Yes, my understanding is that they will basically, the appearance will be essentially the same. There might be a fraction of an inch around the frame difference in order to make existing windows fit. But if you need further information about the specifics of the window and the measurements and all that, I can provide that.
Mick?
Yes.
Question and a comment. If the question is, would the new windows open, each pair open from the opposite side like the current ones, or are these all open from a single side?
If it's the E series, they would all open from the center. If it's the 400 series, some of them would open from from one side with a mullion in the middle to create the same appearance, the same appearance on the outside and inside. But it would be a single window that would swing out. In some instances, we're looking at all of the options that are available to us right now and trying to get a clearer picture of what we're comparing as far as sizes and styles and overall features that we think will comply with your guidelines.
And, you know, I actually did insert windows on my house, and we approved them, and we actually got, believe it or not, because of the size of the sashes, we actually got more glass. So it depends on who the manufacturer is and so on. My frame actually was smaller than the frame and the sash. I should say the new frame and the sash was actually smaller, so that the glass was about the same size, but the incremental on the outside edge was about a half an inch, and then the sash was smaller, which is what made it look great. So I think if you kind of can figure out what those sizes are, as long as they can keep the glass approximately the same size, I think this is approvable. And then you can decide whether you want to have them all open the same way or have the volume in the middle.
I agree. If you can get us that information so that we can see if we had the same amount of light, the same amount of glass light, I think it would probably be, I'm sure it'd be okay. But if it's going to really close up the openings, maybe not.
Okay.
Right.
I think I understand what you're asking, just as far as overall glass area is concerned. And okay.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a motion right now pending for approval, motion and a second. Bob and Beth, do you withdraw your motion and want to replace that with a motion to defer till next month?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to defer this application to next month. And I think Mr. Cook has enough information to provide us. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Cook. I appreciate your patience.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Before we get to the Airbnb request, I just need to go to what normally is at the bottom of our agenda. If there are anybody else who wishes to address the commission. All right, seeing none, let's move on to the public hearing at hand. That's a public hearing regarding a petition of the property owner at 313 East Willow for a proposed amendment to the Glendale zoning code to permit short-term rentals as a conditional use in the B zone. I need to be clear tonight that we have a hard stop today, just before 7 o'clock. Our staff members and one of the commission members must attend a council meeting that begins at 7 o'clock. And in fact, the cable folks who are providing us with the technology for this meeting also have to take care of council meeting at 7. I also want to be clear, very clear at the beginning of this discussion that technically this request does not directly apply to the property at 313 East Willow. It's also known as the Quinn Chapel. Technically, this is a request to change the zoning ordinance in a way that would apply, that might allow short-term rentals or Airbnbs in any dwelling of property that is currently zoned B residential. So in other words, if this request is approved, this amendment would apply to all of the properties that are zoned B in the village, not just to the Quinn Chapel. It would, in fact, allow the owners of the Quinn Chapel to come back to the Planning Commission to ask for special permission, a conditional use to allow an Airbnb at this chapel. And even then, that's not the last step in the process. Once the Planning Commission acts on that request, then the village council would have to approve the conditional use itself. For the presentation of this application, we will begin first with the applicants and their attorney. Second, we will hear from people who have registered beforehand with the village staff. I think we have about 18 people that are registered to speak in the order that they are registered. And David and I have that list. David Lumsden will be our gatekeeper. He will allow those people to come into the meeting to give their testimony and then to allow us to ask any questions. Because of the time, we have less than an hour now as we sit. I'm going to ask that each speaker keep their comments to 3 minutes out of courtesy to the other speakers and it's courtesy to the commission members, quite frankly. I've also asked David to be a timekeeper for that purpose. Here's one other comment too, as far as ground rules, is very important. If your comments are merely going to be repetitive of what somebody ahead of you has already said, please don't take up your time and the other people's time by simply repeating what was already been said. You can just say simply that I agree with Mr. or Mrs. X, Y, and Z, and we can move on from there. At the conclusion of those people who have registered, I will read a list of people who cannot attend this meeting, but who have given their written comments so that those comments can be included in the records. If there's time at the end of all that of the presentations, the commission members will then have an opportunity to speak and to deliberate. But I honestly fully believe that we won't get through much of the discussion here tonight. If that's the case, then I will ask, as we near the end of our time today, for a motion to continue the proceedings, most probably at our November meeting, November 2nd, and perhaps even at an earlier time if it looks like we need something more than the 5:30 start time. So with that, David, we will begin with the applicant and with the attorney for the applicant to give their presentation. David.
All right. I am promoting Mr. Kane first.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Lofty.
Just a moment. This is Don Lofty. I just wanted noted for the record that I'm recusing myself from any participation in this matter because it will eventually make its way up to council as a recommendation from the Planning Commission, and therefore I need to preserve my ability to preside at the council meeting. So I am recused from this matter at the Planning Commission.
Very good. Thank you, Don. And Mr. Kane?
Yep. Hello, can you hear me?
We can. You have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you guys for taking the time to consider this tonight. My name is Jake Kane. My wife and I bought the Quinn Chapel property last year. We grew up around Glendale. We both went to Landmark Christian School and always have loved the charming historic village that's Glendale. So we were really excited when we saw the property come available, and we went through the process of renovating it into a 1-bedroom house that it is today. And so what we wanted to do with the property, we are both, based in this area. We have a lot of family in this area and throughout the region and friends who come to visit. And so we wanted to have it available as a bit of a second house in an awesome community like Glendale, where we could have friends and family stay there when they're coming into town and have that flexibility to use it when we'd like to use it. And then when we're not using it, we want to have the flexibility to rent it out to other people for shorter stays, as a vacation rental. So other families in Glendale, we've heard from people, on the street, and as well as just through Facebook, and at least a dozen or so people that have said, that they would love, that live in Glendale, that say, hey, my family comes in town too. It would be great, if they could stay at your house if you're not using it, and rent it out for the week and that sort of thing. So just having that flexibility and turning it into something that really celebrates the history of the building. So we went pre-COVID, to the historical planning museum there, reached out to the current congregation and had some conversations, just trying to get some photos and sort of celebrate, the history. The building was built in 1889. It's on the list of historic properties in Glendale. And just have some things in there to kind of tell the story that it used to be a local community church, and now it's this beautiful residence. And we just think that that'd be a really cool thing for the community. We think that that could potentially benefit the small businesses that we're, walking distance from, like the gift shop and Bluebird Cafe and the rest. So we think overall it'd be a really positive thing. And we've heard a lot of really positive comments about it. And that's pretty much the long and short of it. So again, thanks for considering that. And I've also got Jeff Nye on the call, who can kind of speak more on the legal side of things of what we're proposing.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. David, could you let Mr. Nye in? Mr. Nye, can you hear us? You're on mute if you can.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are.
Oh, hey, look, there I am too. Okay. Thanks. I want to just sort of briefly talk about what our proposal was here. Jake did a nice job summarizing his experience with the Quinn Chapel. Obviously, what you said at the top of this portion of the meeting is correct. We're not actually here for a conditional use permit today. We're happy to talk about the Quinn Chapel specifically to the extent that the commission wants to talk about it, of course. But really, we just want to talk about the proposal generally. We proposed at the August, I think it was August, and late July and into early August, we proposed adding a new conditional use in the B district that allows a short-term rental. Mr. Cordes, the administrator, asked me some follow-up questions about what a short-term rental is. So we sent a letter over, I think last week. We spent some of that time looking at what other cities and villages in Southwest Ohio and throughout Ohio do, to the extent that they have ordinances of this type. They had some common features, and sort of what we converged on was a definition, a proposed definition of a short-term rental is the leasing of a dwelling by its owner in exchange for a fee for a period of 30 or fewer consecutive days, which is a pretty restrictive definition. We intended to limit it to dwellings, so we're not letting out individual rooms. We intended to limit it to leasing by an owner, so we're not talking about managed properties here. This would allow people to apply for a permit, as you noted, and the permitting process, of course, comes back before this commission, which then makes a recommendation to village council, considering things like the effect on the neighborhood and so on. So, we're not at that level yet. Really what we're trying to do is just simply set standards through which this commission and the village council in the future can consider these things. Again, to the extent that anyone wants to talk about how those might apply to the Quinn Chapel specifically, we're happy to try to do that. But
You
really,
have about a minute.
Really what we're trying to do today is just formalize a set of standards into the zoning code about how someone can do that. That's all I'll have to say for now, though I guess I would say that if there is time, I know it's a short meeting, if we have the opportunity to respond to any questions that the community or the commission might have at the end, we'd like to do that. Thank you.
That's a fair request. Thank you, Mr. Nye. Dave, is there anybody else who wishes to speak on behalf of the applicant?
I do not believe so. So we can, at your pleasure, move on to the members of the public who have registered to speak.
Let's do that. The first person on my list is Susan Armstrong. Can you let Miss Armstrong in?
I will do that. One moment. She'll be coming in shortly.
All right. Susan, I see you're on. You're probably still on mute. Could you take your microphone on mute and tell us what you think? Susan, you're still on mute. Susan, try hitting your space bar and holding it down. That should unmute you. Going once, going twice. David, keep her on our list. We'll go back to her if we can. Looks like she's having technical problems. Let's move on to Charlotte Mackenzie. David, could you let Miss Mackenzie in?
I'm working on that right now. Give me 1 second.
All right.
All right, she's coming into the meeting.
All right, Miss Mackenzie, looks like you're admitted. Would you take your, there you are. Could you take your microphone off mute? There you go. And tell us what you think.
Good evening. I am Charlotte Mackenzie, owner of the property located at 324 East Willow. And I am here speaking in opposition of the application. My parents purchased our family home in the early 1950s when areas for Black families was limited to only a few streets in Glendale, which included East Willow. They purchased the house for my brother's godparents. All of the families have taken great pride in our neighborhood. The B District, as this area is referred to, is a small, quaint, 100% residential area with no conditional use permits. Growing up as children, strong families, moms and dads, I think of East Willow families. It has been a quiet street. It is a narrow street nestled in a safe area. I attended Glendale Elementary School, then going on to junior high. From there, I went on to Princeton High School, which at that time was located right across the street, where I also graduated. Some of the newer Glendale residents, or those who have never lived in Glendale, will probably have no frame of reference for that. But for my frame of reference and some of the B District residents, it means strength, it means pride and the awesome blessings of memories. I listened very intently to the August 3rd, 2020 Village Council meeting. There were comments about how this permit would show the village, give great access to the village, be an economic boost for the village, with the implication of an economical benefit for the applicant, but no real mention about what it does, or more importantly, does not do for the owners and residents of East Willow. Part of the reason we are here this evening is because the applicant originally advertised 313 East Willow as a newly renovated historic church in B District on an Airbnb rental website. There are distinct differences of the current East Willow residents, comprised of long-term residents and long-term renters who look at their house as their actual home, their safe place, versus short-term, in and out, Airbnb type temporary occupants. Of the 7 districts located in Glendale, perhaps other districts other than B could be considered for opening an Airbnb and getting conditional permits or rezoning elsewhere, another church.
You have about a minute.
If that is the goal of the applicant. There are also other viable accommodation options throughout the Cincinnati area if needed for anyone's family and friends. It is my hope and request that your commission's decision will be to preserve the historic integrity district and disapprove this application or 154.62 conditional use permit application as aforementioned. The regulations of such a permit are insufficient to protect the residents of East Willow against the negative impact of 313 East Willow, including increased traffic on what is already a narrow street and potential negative effect on the neighborhood. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Oh, thank you. That was very good timing too, Ms. Mackenzie. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
David, the next on my list is Bonnie Fulton.
I do not see, I see a Tamron Fulton on the list, but she is registered later. I do not see Bonnie. Bonnie, if you are in the meeting, please.
David, you went on mute, David.
Oh, I guess I let go of my space bar. I don't see Bonnie on the list. I see Tamron. Bonnie, if you are in the attendees list and are given the option to raise your hand, please do so. But otherwise, I do not see her on our list of speakers.
All right, let's go to Ruth Wilson then, David. We'll go back to
let's see. I don't see Dr. Ruth Wilson on the list either.
Okay.
I'm not sure. One moment. Oh, here is Brenda Daniels. She's registered later. Yeah, I don't see Dr. Ruth Wilson either. Denise Patrick appears to be the next registered speaker.
Okay. Let's go with Denise Patrick. Ms. Patrick, I think you are on mute still, so take your there.
Can you hear me now?
We can now. Thank you. We have 3 minutes, and David will watch your time.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My family and I have called East Willow our home for 4 years now. But for me, I've been calling it home for many more. I say this because my current home once was the home of my grandparents, Wilbert and Edith Lewis, who built this home back in the 1940s. As a child, I remember coming to visit my grandparents and how much joy it brought me. I recall seeing the friendly exchanges between neighbors and how everyone seemed to know each other. I could only dream of living and being part of such a wonderful neighborhood when I grew up. And now here I am giving my children the same experience I had as a child. I love everything about the street, and I would hate to see it tarnished by allowing a zoning amendment to be passed that would allow the running of an Airbnb. There are many reasons why I feel the zoning amendment should not pass. For starters, the current owner of 313 East Willow deceived many of the residents by telling them he was buying this property as a second home for his family and friends when they are in town. But in fact, this was not the full truth. He failed to mention that he would also be renting out the property for short-term use when family and friends were not using it. Another reason I am concerned about a business being ran in our neighborhood is because of the people it would bring to our street. Right now, our street is very peaceful, and I feel safe allowing my children to play outside. Passing this zoning amendment would allow a revolving door of strangers into our neighborhood, and along with other residents, along with other residents of the street, are just not comfortable with that. Not to mention the shooting that occurred at the Airbnb in downtown Cincinnati this past August. This only heightens my fears. Another concern is the increase of traffic it will bring to our street. East Willow is a one-way street. Many of the residents use the street for parking. It is not fair for visitors coming to the Airbnb to take up the parking spaces that they would be using. Also, it was mentioned on a Facebook posting that the current owner planned on allowing the property to be used for events such as baby showers and other social gatherings. This would also add to the traffic and parking issues. There are just a couple of issues. These are just a couple of issues we would face if the zoning amendment was passed. But there are so many unforeseen problems that could arise and have a negative impact on the neighborhood. My husband and I have gone around the neighborhood of East Willow in Cleveland asking the residents to sign a petition opposing the zoning amendment. Majority of the residents gladly signed the petition and were outraged that there could be a possibility that this could actually occur in our peaceful neighborhood. When I was informed that there would be a public hearing via Zoom, I made sure to call up to the village to reserve my spot. I know there are some residents that are not able to partake, and I wanted to know how their voices would be heard. I feel the petition that many of the residents signed that I will be submitting to the committee will represent
about 30 seconds.
100 voices tonight. In closing, I hope the words that I have shared with the council will be heard and the zoning amendment will be denied, and the B district continue as it was meant to be, a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. On that petition, if you would deliver a copy to David or to Wally Cordes at the village offices, I would appreciate that. All right, David, let's move on to Cliff Campbell. Is Cliff Campbell?
I am looking
on
for
the list?
Mr. Campbell. I don't see a Mr. Campbell on the list or on the Zoom list here.
All right. Well, next is Jade Staft.
I can go ahead and promote Jade. Yes.
All right. Jade Staff, it looks like you're on, but I think you're still on mute. If you could.
Excuse me 1 second.
I apologize. It seems like Denise had one thing to say. I don't know. Do you want me to promote her back?
Well, we got Jade on now. If we have time, we'll go back.
Thank you for allowing me to participate in this meeting, and I'll keep my comments brief. I have 3 concerns related to the possible zoning change, including East Willow Avenue. My concerns are parking, misrepresentation, and arbitrary zoning discrimination. Related to parking, it is very true. This is a tight street. When people are home in the evenings, it's very difficult to find a place to park. I just do not believe that a short-term rental, there would be accommodations for extra vehicles. Plus, we do not know what these rentals are going to include, what type of rentals they are. Short-term, B&B, parties of some sort. I've actually been to the basement of the chapel, and it's fairly large. It could support quite a number of people. Where would they park? As someone mentioned, this is a very narrow street. Children play on this street. And in spite of the trains, it's really kind of a tranquil neighborhood. And the reason why it's that way is because it's zoned residential. Misrepresentation. I listened to the video of the August 3rd council meeting. Mr. Kane, the owner of the Quinn Chapel on East Willow, emphasized wanting to make it a second home for family and friends. If this is the case, no zoning change would be needed. As he spoke further, he indicated almost as an aside that he wanted to rent out this chapel when not used by family. I encourage everyone to go to the website, thequinnchapel.com. It appears to me that from day one, Mr. Kane planned to make this chapel into a business. This was his primary objective. Someone said on August 3rd at the council meeting that based on what Mr. Kane said, this would be a soft rental, meaning rental would occur maybe just a short percentage of the year. We do not have any assurances of that. We just don't know. In addition, Mr. Kane stated that the residents of Glendale were very enthusiastic about the business, especially those who live on East Willow. That is definitely not the case. I encourage all of you, if you have not already, to drive down East Willow. You will see almost every house with a sign in the yard indicating an opposition to the zoning change.
You have about a minute.
A young couple who asked me to sign a petition, which my husband and I did, had yard signs. They ran out of yard signs before they ran out of households, I think, that wanted them. Also, that includes Cleveland Avenue. Many people do not want it. Misrepresentation. My question is, why is this being limited to Zone B? It was mentioned that, well, Zone B is close to businesses and that could help Glendale. All of Glendale is close to businesses. And the way Mr. Nye represented it, well, this only applies to Zone B, as if, well, if there's a disruption, it's going to only be Zone
Your
B.
time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stahl. Next on our list is Tamara Fulton.
I will point out, Mr. Bridenstine, that Mr. Cliff Campbell has signed into the meeting.
All right. Have you, promoted Tamara Fulton.
Hello, hi.
Good
My name
evening.
is Cameron Fulton. As a millennial in generation, I understand the aspect of an Airbnb. However, also being a resident of Glendale and growing up as also a member of the Quinn Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church, I have an opposition of the rezoning. This is obviously a lot of the reasons that have been stated from Ms. Charlotte Mackenzie as well as Denise Patrick. The character of the neighborhood and obviously allowing the reoccurring of people that don't understand the neighborhood to come into the residence for a short term definitely changes how the neighborhood and structure is. Growing up in both sides of Glendale, we're on the opposite sides of the train tracks, as well as right on Cleveland Avenue. You have the safety of just being able to walk to the park and knowing all the neighbors as you walk up to the street are family. And even now, actually living in New York, I come home and I'm able to bring my children back to, and my family members back to East Willow. And it still is the same aspect of me growing up as a kid. And I would not, I would be very saddened to be able to see that change. Again, with following into the parking, it's very important to make sure that your residents that live there and coming home from work have the ability to be able to park right away. And with a property where you don't know the capacity of how many members would be able to be renting out that facility is definitely a major concern. Again, like I said, in my opposition to, I follow all the comments that, again, Ms. Charlotte Mackenzie and Denise Patrick in the opposition of rezoning.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. David, did you say that Mr. Campbell's available now?
Yes.
All right, please promote him and we'll listen to him.
All righty, he's coming up now.
All right. Mr. Campbell, it looks like you're there. It looks like you might still be on mute. If you would take your PC or your phone off of mute. And if you're on a PC or on a laptop, you can just simply hit the space bar. That should take you off of mute. David, let's looks like he's having technical difficulties also. Let's move on to Brenda Daniels, and we'll get back to Mr. Campbell if we can. Can you promote Brenda Daniels?
Yes, one moment.
All right, Ms. Daniels, it looks like you have been promoted, and it looks like you're still on mute as well. Would you take your PC, your phone off of mute? And then that way we can hear you. Again, you can hold your space bar down. You should be able to hold your space bar down to talk. Not working. Nope. Are you there, Ms. Daniels?
Yes, can you see me?
Oh, there you are. We can see you and hear you now. Very good.
Hallelujah.
All right.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay, first of all, I wanted to tell you that Dr. Ruth is here. She's at my house because she couldn't get hers up.
Oh, hi, Dr. Ruth.
Possibly, and also Pam Tucson is here.
Okay.
But I don't think she's on the list, but anyway, I had to run upstairs and get my charger because my phone was dying, so I'm kind of out of breath.
That's all right.
Okay, I'm ready though.
Please begin.
Okay, hello, my name is Brenda Daniels, a resident of Glendale living at 79 Washington Avenue. I'm here representing myself as well as my 77-year-old sister, Sylvia Williams, and her 86-year-old husband, Russell Williams, who reside at 310 East Willow, almost directly across from the former Quinn Chapel Church. They both were terribly disturbed to learn of the intentions of the new owners to turn Quinn Chapel into an Airbnb and bring God knows what into the peaceful, secure setting of East Willow. Now, you asked us not to repeat what other people are saying. So a lot of this that I have prepared, others have already said. But what I do want to say is there was a statement made that Zone B, if this zoning was changed, it would be open to all of Zone B. Guess what? I live in Zone B. I live on Washington Avenue. And that means someone could come in here, buy a house next to me, and start a business. I am vehemently opposed to that type of behavior. We, once again, are saying that we live in a safe community and we love and respect our community. My question to you is, what about the people who live in Zone A or the people who live in other zones? They're not having to face this situation, and rightly so. They shouldn't have to face this situation. We choose where we want to live. And if we wanted to live in a business district, we would have bought in a business district. So I'm asking you, I appeal to you as council or as the planning committee to respect the wishes of the residents and vote no tonight on rezoning and a conditional use permit 154.62. I had a lot more to say, but like I said, I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ruth. She was skipped over. So if you allow her to speak now, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Dr. Ruth, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good, good, good. Well, I'm not going to take up the whole 3 minutes that I have because Jade said everything that I was going to say. She sounded like she was talking like me, but she said everything. So I have 2 things to say to you that I want to request. East Willow Avenue, to me, is just like the church. We've been here a long time. We are heritage, and this community is a wonderful, wonderful community. And I do not want to see it opened up to commercial businesses. Now, as it was said before, Jake and his wife, they really misrepresented themselves to me, because if I had known that it was going to be a Quinn Chapel Airbnb, Mr. Wally would have seen me immediately and I would have opposed it, and then they would not have had to spend the money that they spent renovating the church. Now, my request to you is to consider removing the conditional use from the B district planning plan of Glendale, because to me, that clause is racism. And the fact that it's just in the B district where the American Negro is permitted to live. Of course, I know you've opened up other areas, but from the beginning and for a long time, the American Negro could only live on East Willow, Washington, and around Jefferson and Cleveland Avenue. It's residential. I pray that you will keep it residential and not allow Mr. and Mrs. Kane to come into our community and turn it and to commercialize it. So please consider removing the conditional use from the plan and also from the B section. Well, no, I want it removed from the plan because it's only in the B section. If it was all over Glendale, then I wouldn't have a problem.
You have about a minute.
Okay, but the people that want this business here, they don't want it in their neighborhood, and we don't want it in ours. We want to remain a residential community, and so that's why I'm requesting that you remove the conditional use. Then we won't be back here in a few years saying we don't want this. If you remove it now, it won't happen again. So thank you for listening, and have a blessed day today. I turned 96 years of age. Happy birthday to me. Bye-bye, and thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Ruth. All right, going on our list, we next have Diane Agricola. David, could you promote Miss Agricola?
1 second. I do not see her on the list.
Okay, well, let's move on to continue. Well, let's just continue on our list. We'll go back and catch the ones we missed before. Bill Parrish is next on the list. Mr. Parrish, can you promote him? Mr. Parrish, I see you're on. It looks like you're still on mute. Oh, almost stuck. Yes. Oh, no.
Temporarily unmuted.
There, okay. We can hear you now.
Am I good?
Okay. Yeah, 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. My name's Bill Parrish. Most of you know me. Third generation Glendalean. My grandparents came and settled in Glendale in 1923, when my dad started kindergarten at Eckstein School. One of the interesting things about our story, because we've been there 3 generations, our house burned down in 1968. We were on vacation, came home, our house on Washington Avenue had burned down. And Mr. Smith, who owned the house at 330 East Willow, offered us a house to live in. So we moved down to the other side of Glendale and lived right next door to Charlotte, Mackenzie, and Leslie Cooper, and their friends in that. That's a snippet of our story here. But I'm more coming from the standpoint of history. This isn't to me. I think it's more about the history of Glendale and the systems that we have in place to protect the history. I think now I've just finished a second book called The Children of Eckstein School, which is going to be a detailed book about Eckstein School. I just 2 years ago finished a book called The Underground Community, How Blacks Settled in Glendale. Many of us don't know that there's 2 streets down there in Cleveland and East Willow where African Americans settled as they worked on the railroad and they worked for the rich white people in the community. They don't know that that Benjamin Arnett originally started the church on East Willow back in 1864. Eventually they built a church up in that. And so our village is called the Historic Village of Glendale, but there's nothing in Glendale that says the Black people live in the village. That's my concern, because I've been in Columbus last week trying to get, going through the process of beginning to get plaques or markers in the village that state that the Underground Railroad was significant in Glendale.
You have about a minute.
That Quinn Chapel is significant. And that's my reason for being in on this call. I think we've been racist in our approach to the history of the village of Glendale. This is an amazing church with amazing history. And if they had gone back and really wanted to know about the history of the village, they probably wouldn't have gone in this direction to do this. But I'd also like to preservation people here to know tonight that I'm doing all this research and that it's going to be available. But we're going to have to realize that the historic village of Glendale belongs to all people. And we can't do this as a way to meet the needs of a few people in the village who feel privileged. But go back and look at the zoning.
Your time has expired, sir.
Thank you for giving me the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Appreciate that presentation. Next, we have Kevin Parrish. Is Kevin in the queue?
I don't see his name on the list here.
Okay, let's go back to him if we can with time. Next is Clyde Stearns.
In one moment, I will promote him. He is calling into the meeting, so we will only have audio.
That's fine. Is that his number ending in 544?
It is.
Mr. Stearns, you're online now, but we can't hear you. Can you unmute your phone? David, I'm not sure how he does it on a phone.
I'm not sure either. Probably will prompt him to push a certain button. It might be pound or star.
Usually it's *6.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Any luck there, Mr. Stearns? We still can't hear you.
Is he on a cell phone or a regular wired phone?
There's no way I think we can tell.
If
I'm
it's
not sure.
If it's a cell phone, he just has to tap on the phone and the mute thing will show up in the bottom left and with a line across it, and then he hits on that and it'll unmute.
Looks like a microphone.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Stearns, have you figured it out? All right, well, let's put a mark next to him. We'll go back to him if we can. Mr. Stearns, I apologize, but we're all challenged by this technology, that's for sure. Martha Stearns is next on the list.
I believe they were sharing the phone line to call in.
All right, we'll go back to the Stearns if we can. Andy Timmel is next on my list.
I do not see Mr. Timmel, nor do I see the M. Timmel on the list in the meeting yet.
They're not in the queue. All right, last on the list is Eugene Butler.
I don't believe I see Mr. Butler either.
Okay, well, let's go back to the top where we had our first technical difficulty with Susan Armstrong. Is she in the queue still?
Yes, there are two Susan Armstrongs. I'm going to promote one. We'll see if that one works. If not, we'll try the other.
All right, Susan, we promoted one of you. Can you take your phone or your PC off of mute? If you're on a PC or a laptop, you should be able just to hit the space bar, hold it down while you talk. If you're on your phone, there's a dedicated mute button that you should be able to type or press to get off mute. I don't know about a tablet, if you're on a tablet. Oh, we have another Susan Armstrong joining.
I promoted both of them. I figured the odds might work out for us.
Susan, any luck? Oh,
did that work?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I coming on?
Yes, please. We have 3 minutes. Tell us what you think.
Okay. While I was turning on the other computer, there we go. I didn't hear everyone, so I hope I don't repeat. There's a national issue right now with Airbnbs because people are renting them as entertainment venues. As we're all aware, in Cincinnati in August, a handyman sent to stop disruptive behavior at a illegal party in Airbnb ended up being attacked and shot. Because the Canes live in Terrace Park, 20 miles away, if there's disruptive behavior at the Quinn Chapel property, it's going to be the neighbors and the Glendale police who will be aware of it. It won't be the Canes. So that was my first concern. My first concern is for the quiet enjoyment of our neighborhood. My second is that I'm just insulted for Glendale. The Canes were aware that this property is residential B. It clearly stated it on the multiple listing when they purchased the property. The fact that they began using it as an overnight rental without seeking permission seems to me that it was just a disregard for our village, for our law, and certainly for our street. Snowden and I have lived on East Willow. We are 2 doors from Quinn Chapel. We've been here since 2002. We've been residents of the village since 1977. I think the most serious charge, and this is, others have said it, is that it seems to me that the request to allow this in residential B only is highly discriminatory. It's saying the people in residential B can endure the risk of suddenly having a business in the neighborhood and whatever disruptive behavior might occur.
You have about a minute.
Thank you. You know, we don't have first class and second class citizens in Glendale. This is 2020. We certainly don't want to create that where it doesn't exist already. I think that's the biggest reason that I object to this. There is no reason to put resident B people at risk to please out-of-town investors. So I encourage you to reject this proposal. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Susan. David, continuing with the list of where we skipped over people, Cliff Campbell. Is Mr. Campbell still in the queue?
I've promoted him. We'll see if the audio comes through.
Okay. Is that Mr. Campbell with the phone ending 544?
No, that's the Stearns.
It's still the Stearns. You still trying, Mr. Campbell?
Yes, I am. Appears Mr. Campbell has vanished.
All right. Well, let's hold on him for now. Diane Agricola, is she on the list?
She has still not appeared on the list.
Kevin Parrish
has not yet appeared.
Okay, then back to Clyde and Martha Stearns. That's with the 544 area or telephone number.
It is. Not sure how to unmute them.
Well, it's got to be on their end, I suppose. Mr. or Mrs. Stearns, I'll give you another shot here. I know technology is a challenge for all of us, but we'll give you just a moment to unmute if you can. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Is that Miss Stearns? Yes.
This is Martha Stearns, yes.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Oh, great. I've heard a lot of interesting things tonight. I'm originally from Florida, state of Florida, but I had lived in Ohio, specifically on East Willow, for almost 60 years. And when I first heard about the possibility of a B&B on my street, I was horrified. This is such a wonderful residential, quiet street. The neighbors are wonderful. There are some drawbacks in terms of being a narrow street, and the garbage truck the Rumpke has a problem coming down the street sometimes because of the crowdedness of the streets. People have to park on their street in front of their houses. And other some little inconveniences, but on a whole, this is a wonderful residential area, and I would oppose any effort to change it from being a totally residential street. And I don't want to repeat the things that I've already heard, but you know how we feel about it. Clyde and Martha Stearns object to any change. You want to keep it residential. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stearns. David, I have the Timmels. Have they made on the queue?
I do not see them on the list here.
And last is Eugene Butler on that queue.
I do not see Mr. Butler either.
All right. Well, we've gone through Campbell, Agricola, and Kevin Parrish twice now. I don't suppose either of them on the line.
I would point out Miss Denise Patrick has raised her hand. I don't know if you want to revisit her comments.
I'll give her 30 seconds, but then we should proceed. Go ahead and promote Miss Patrick once again. Miss Patrick?
I just want to give my husband a chance to speak. He's right here. Cliff Campbell.
For some reason, it's not letting my phone pick up. And I'm on the list.
Okay. So you're Mr. Cliff Campbell?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, you get 3 minutes then.
Okay, I would like to start off by saying that the Planning Commission should be held at a public hearing based on the Code of Ordinance and 154-64 changes to the community unit plans to let everyone speak and be heard, because this doesn't seem to be working correctly. That's trying to get in, this is myself was. And going on with the other thing, I would like to say I would second everything that anybody said against the short-term rentals. I would like to start off by saying East Willow will not open Pandora's box for short-term rentals. Airbnbs are considered a business. If you start a business, it's your obligation to know the local laws and restrictions and how they work. We have not had, I don't think he's gotten a loan for this through a business loan or have business insurance or pay business taxes. In more ways than one, he broke the laws. This could resort in fines of thousands of dollars. Glendale must abide by the state and local laws. There is a there is a case of breaking the law and asking for forgiveness. I believe this was on his behalf was a low risk, high reward if he managed to achieve this. I think by approving this would be keeping long-term Black owners of the community down and won't be able to keep up with the taxes that will increase over time. The area is low lit. There's no lighting within 200 feet of the area of the residence that he's asking to be turned into a business.
You have about a minute.
This is a one-way street with limited parking and a large number of people that are handicapped and needing these parking spots to get in and out of the front of their homes. This is kind of unethical. There's no way that he's going to police or issue any of the area that or maintain order like a hotel would have. Short-term rentals would be come and going of all hours of the night and interfere with families doing their everyday life. A continuous stream of strange people will be coming and posing a security issue. Airbnb regulations are not like hotels. In the case of a fire or how safe it will be.
Your time has expired, sir.
Come with sprinkler systems. Surrounding homes are composed because the buildings don't set far enough off the property line.
Mr. Patrick, are you, or Mr. Campbell, I should say, are you concluding that that was the end of your 3 minutes?
Denise,
I'm sorry?
I don't know.
You cut you off, you done? You might cut you off.
Yeah, we've given everybody 3 minutes and you've gone over. I think we've understood everything you had to say, but thank you for that time. Thank you for your commentary. That concludes, David, everybody who was pre-registered to sign, other than people who weren't able to appear or didn't appear. And we've made a note of those people. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, I would also want to make a list, at least a public announcement of people who could not attend, but who did submit in writing their comments. That includes Bev Rickhoff, Charlotte Mackenzie, who we heard from today, Constance Halbauer Pridemore, Genevieve Abel, Brenda Toonson Baldwin, Sherry Cooper Harris, Dominique Covington, Tracy Toonson Poole, and Jack Boucher. Each of those people have submitted emails, I believe, to you, David, or maybe to Wally, and those will be included in the record of these proceedings. We are 6 minutes till 7. As I predicted, we really don't have enough time to wrap things up. The next logical part of this presentation would be to allow Mr. Kane and Mr. Nye the opportunity to address those comments that they've heard, but there certainly is not enough time for that, much less our deliberations. I think, therefore, it's appropriate to entertain a motion to defer, at least to pause the public hearing until next month, to our November meeting, reopen it, at which point we would begin with the presentation of, well, actually the people who were pre-registered but could not speak tonight. And then we would move on to the rebuttal comments of Mr. Nye and Mr. Kane. Does everybody have any comments of that process, of that proposal?
I concur.
And David, if anybody who's not on the screen now has a comment, they have the ability to raise their hand and ask questions.
They do. It looks like Miss Brenda Daniels and just Miss Brenda Daniels and Mr. William Parrish have both raised their hands.
Okay, could you promote both of them? We can hear if they have any short comments relative to the process, not on the substance.
All right, Miss Brenda Daniels has been promoted.
I don't see her on the screen. David, I don't see her on the screen. Is she?
She should be showing up.
Oh.
There we are.
All right, Miss Daniels.
Yes. The one thing that I wanted to say is that I didn't get a chance to say is that if we do this in Zone B, we will be setting a precedence for the whole section, not only Zone B, but it can then popcorn around to other zones.
Okay.
And I know Glendale doesn't want that. That's all I had to say.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Did Mr. Parrish, you said, had his hand raised? Again, Mr. Parrish, if you could keep your comments to the process of where we're going from this stage forward. Everybody's had a chance to speak. So let's keep it focused on what's coming up next.
Oh, okay.
Is Mr. Parrish? Yes, sir. You need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You mentioned process. You said next month, pausing this and going to next month. What is the process? What is it that we're trying to get to that we can know what that process is today? So are we going to what are the next two steps, and how are we going, what's going to be the conclusion? Because I think it's important for us to know where this is going.
Yeah.
And there is a process in place that is consistent with what we've done in the past.
Sure, that's a fair question. The full process is that this planning commission is a recommending body only. We gather this evidence and hear this testimony in order to make a decision, but our decision is not final. It's merely a recommendation to the village council. So once we've heard everybody and seen any evidence or seen any documents or other evidence that's appropriate, we then as a body deliberate. The planning commission talks amongst ourselves, and we'll take a vote on what our recommendation is to the council on what should happen with this request. It's just that, it's a recommendation that's forwarded then by way of a resolution to the council. Council will then pick it up. They, I believe, may even have to have their own public hearing, their own process by which they hear testimony, gather evidence, and they make a decision on this. They're the ultimate deciding body on this particular issue. And their decision could be, no, we don't want this in the B zone, or we think it's appropriate, and that they would pass an ordinance that would amend the zoning ordinance to allow this. But first of all, we're just a recommending body. Council is the actual final deciding body. We're not quite to our recommendation yet. The process now is that we are going to defer to next month, the November 2nd meeting, pick up where we left off, and then that will then result in a recommendation. All right, members of the commission, we are 2 minutes away from the enchanted hour. Can I hear a motion to defer action, or actually to continue the public hearing to our meeting in November? And I think we would be safe to continue at 5:30. It looks like we've heard from everybody. So if we begin at 5:30, I think we should be safe.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to defer action, to close the public hearing temporarily and reopen it in November. Any further discussion, members of the commission? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are 1 minute till 7. Is there any other motion?
There's a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Right under the wire. David, we can close the meeting. Good night, everyone.